Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a really pretty radical scientific paper. You sent us this one, Electrogravitonic Stellar Alchemy, Coherence and Transmutation. And it presents a genuinely profound shift in perspective on stars. So our mission really is to explore this theory. It fundamentally challenges, how we think stars work, how elements get made. Like, what if they aren't just these giant fusion reactors,
Yeah.
just smashing atoms, but something more?
Well, the paper uses the word alchemical. What if what we see on the surface, that simple composition, actually hides all sorts of exotic stuff deep inside?
It's a fascinating proposal. The paper puts forward this mechanism, electrogravitonic transmutation,
Hmm.
and it pictures stellar cores not as, simple thermonuclear furnaces,
Right.
but as these sophisticated, coherence-modulated alchemical engines. The idea is to replace that standard fusion model. It suggests this kind of hidden elemental architecture deep within stars, something our current methods just can't see. That's a huge claim, isn't it? Replacing our basic understanding. The standard model, yeah, it treats stars like these massive collision factories. Fusion needs immense pressure, temperature, and it assumes all the heavier elements, the really complex ones, they only come from like supernovae, these huge explosions that scatter material.
Exactly, which then has to somehow travel across the galaxy.
Right. But this new framework, this electrogravitonic stellar alchemy, it paints a very different picture. So how does it suggest elements transform inside stars, if not just brute force fusion?
Well, it introduces something called coherence field dynamics.
Hmm.
Instead of needing particles with, enormous energy to break through that electromagnetic repulsion, the Coulomb barrier we all learned about,
Yeah, that wall.
this theory suggests stars have a kind of quantum shortcut. They can essentially phase through that barrier. They do this by manipulating what the paper calls coherence fields.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big shift from just relying on raw electrostatic forces. It's something
Yeah.
more subtle, allowing transformation right there in the core.
Okay, let me try and wrap my head around this. The foundation seems to be this coherence field concept. Can you break that down a bit? Because it sounds, well, fundamental.
Yeah.
And pretty mind-bending.
Right. Think of the coherence field as almost like the universe's hidden operating system,
Mm-hmm.
an invisible, maybe resonant structure that's even more fundamental than space and time as we perceive them.
Mm.
It's where the sort of information or blueprints for reality exist before they manifest physically.
Wow.
So it's not just a passive background. It's the source from which things like space-time curvature, electromagnetism, all of that actually
Yeah.
emerge, a deeper layer where everything's perfectly organized.
Okay. And linked to that, they bring in another key term, hypergravity.
Right.
What's that exactly, and how does it connect to this coherence field?
Good question. Hypergravity in this model isn't simply stronger gravity. It's defined as the condition of maximal coherence compression, basically pure informational density. It's so intense, this coherence tension, that it actually collapses into what we perceive as mass and gravity.
So wait, mass doesn't cause gravity in this view. Coherence tension is the origin of mass.
That's the radical idea. In stars, this hypergravity state acts like a dimensional convergence funnel,
Hmm.
a tipping point where the local coherence gets so compressed it triggers the electrogravitonic transmutation. It completely bypasses the need for those classical fusion temperatures and pressures. Stars, in this view, become symmetry field modulators. They're manipulating these fundamental fields.
Okay, my brain is definitely getting a workout here. It's a lot to process, but fascinating.
Okay.
So if stars are operating this way as these symmetry field modulators using coherence, hypergravity, what's one of the big astrophysical mysteries this theory claims to solve?
Well, it directly tackles the mystery of elemental distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Modern astrophysics sometimes struggles to explain why certain elements, especially the heavier or more exotic isotopes, were found so widely.
Right.
The standard explanation involving supernovae scattering everything,
Yeah.
it can feel a bit stretched sometimes, both dynamically and when you look closely at the observations.
Yeah, I've wondered about that too. You see these weird isotopic ratios in some star system, and the story's always, well, a supernova blew up light years away, billions of years ago, and the debris just happened to drift here and clump together.
Exactly. It feels complex.
But this paper is saying maybe it's not about stuff traveling vast distances. Maybe it's generated locally.
That's the core argument. This coherence-based model suggests elemental richness is generated right there within individual stars. But, and this is key, it's masked by coherence-induced spectral veiling.
Ah, coherence masking. Okay.
Yes. So the photosphere, the star's visible surface that looks mostly like hydrogen and helium,
Right.
that might just be a coherence-filtered skin.
Yeah.
beneath that skin. There can be a whole hidden architecture of transmuted matter, heavier complex elements that we simply can't detect directly with our current spectrometers.
So the light we analyze from a star, it's more like a surface reflection, a phase-reflected surface, as they put it, not a true window into what's really inside. It's like seeing a painted facade and assuming the whole building's made of paint, but underneath there's steel, concrete, wiring, a whole different structure.
A good analogy.
This coherence masking, then, means these coherence layer structures prevent commission or detection of deep stellar material, which leads to this apparent simplicity that might be totally misleading. What are the bigger implications, then, for cosmology if this masking effect is real?
Oh, they're pretty profound. It means we might need to completely reevaluate our ideas about how common or rare certain elements actually are in the universe. It could potentially offer new ways to think about dark matter. Maybe it's related to these coherence-locked fields that don't interact the way normal matter does.
Hmm.
And it definitely forces a rethink of galactic chemical evolution models, how elements get spread around.
So, okay, bringing all together, what does this all mean? This deep dive, it's shown us a perspective where stars are potentially much more complex, internally dynamic. They might be generating elements locally through some hidden quantum level alchemy, not just brute force fusion. And this coherence masking idea is really central. The idea that the surface we see could be like a veil hiding a much richer, more exotic reality underneath.
Exactly. And this raises, I think, a really important question for you, the listener, to think about. If the surface of something as fundamental as a star might be a coherence-filtered skin,
Yeah.
masking this hidden architecture of transmuted matter, well, what does that suggest about other things we observe? Other phenomena, other compositions in the cosmos that seem simple on the surface?
Right.
Could there be more to reality than meets the eye? Or, more than meets the spectrometer? How often might the data we can easily observe just be a kind of phase-reflected surface, not the whole truth of the system underneath?
That is quite a thought to end on. Definitely makes you look up at the night sky a bit differently, doesn't it? Thank you so much for sharing this source with us. It's been a truly fascinating deep dive into some really groundbreaking, maybe even paradigm-shifting ideas. Keep exploring, everyone. Keep that curiosity going, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.